Call the meeting to order. It's 6:30 and the date is Monday, February 14th. And this is a committee of the whole meeting, administration and finance for the township of Edwardsburg Cardinal for the month of February. So meeting's been called to order and I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. So moved. Councillor Cameron moving and Councillor Dillabaugh seconding. Those in favor? Aye. Motion is carried. And so now I'll go to item number 3, which is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Are there any disclosures here this evening? Nobody. Okay, and so just before I go on, I guess I should note that members of council are present at their desks here for this meeting, along with the CAO, Mr. Grant, and attending by Zoom, we have the clerk, Ms. Williams, and the deputy clerk, Ms. Newcomb, and the treasurer, Mrs. Stubbs, and the director of operations, Mr. Gord Shaw. So I don't see any members of the public present, but there are 4 names that I can't read from here. So I'm just going to ask the clerk if she could give me the names of the 4 that I cannot read. They're too small to read from my desk. If you would, please. It's just their names.
Through the chair, I don't have any other members listed attending, either staff or public right now.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
So through the chair, I don't have anyone on my end other than the staff present that are attending virtually. There's no one else on.
The names that you see, Mr. Mayor, are everyone's microphones.
Oh, their mic,
it's just
okay.
the red is that their mic is muted.
Oh, I see.
When the red disappears, the mic's up.
Okay,
It's just their own name.
Okay. All right, so we can go on then. So we're at item number 4 on the agenda, which is business arising from the previous committee of the whole meeting. And that meeting was held on January the 10th. The minutes were distributed with the agenda package. Is there any business arising from that meeting? I don't see any hands, so I'm going to move on here. So the next one is delegations and presentations. We have none this evening. And so item number 6 is just to have a discussion concerning committee terms of reference review. Now, the clerk had indicated to me that she just wanted to do a quick review here. So I'll let the clerk just explain what she's looking for here. If you would, Rebecca.
Thank you. Through the chair. Just every year, the year of the term of council ending, the clerk usually presents to the committee of the whole for Min Finance just the current committee terms of reference for all of the general committees that are appointed via council, except for the Public Library Board and the Port Management, because they are separate bylaws and separate terms of references. So I just like to present this to see what the feeling is around council table, if they think the current terms of reference is working, if it needs some modification, if we need any type of edits, suggestions. It's open to the council. I've just made up a little summary of the different schedules, what they are for, noting changes that happened in 2020 in regards to the Community Development Committee, with the addition of 2 additional advisory members that go back down to a full 2 rather than 4 come the end of this term, as well as some minor, I don't want to call them concerns, but some minor difficulties with attendance and turnover of committee members. Staff has prepared just a couple of alternative options, but they're definitely not every and any alternative option possible, but just for review and see what council thinks. Thank you.
Okay, so just open the floor for discussion. I see Councillor Cameron.
Yes, just I think I've gone over it, Mr. Mayor. I feel that the status quo is fine with me, but I would just like to question the bylaw itself, the I'm going to go to the very last bylaw, which is the 2001 bylaw, I believe. Yes, 2001. And on page 21 or 22, where it's listing the committees, I'm just curious as to why the livestock is not in there. I realize it's not a committee, but
Now, is this page, what's the page reference? What's it in the
well,
package?
I'm looking, okay, the bylaw starts on page 19. And it lists public works, it lists administration, you know, and so on, committee of adjustment, fence viewers, all that, but livestock is not in there. I'm just curious as to why it's not. Through the chair to the clerk, please.
So to the clerk.
So through the chair, I'm assuming you're looking at the bylaw 2021-50.
Is that the one on page 19?
That
Yes,
would be the bylaw amending the original 2020-65 bylaw. That was
Yes.
just amending Schedule D to adjust the committee terms of reference for the Committee of Adjustments only.
Okay, but then if we go back to the previous bylaw, 2020, I believe it is. The livestock is not in that either. So I guess it could pertain to either of the bylaws.
So through the chair, if I may, each schedule identifies exactly what its purpose is. So the livestock is a separate bylaw that appoints the livestock investigator. The Schedule D that you're referring to is for the actual committees. There is no committee for the livestock investigator. The livestock investigator is only referenced under Schedule C for the committee honorariums.
Well,
The livestock
is there a committee for the fence viewers?
it is. There's a
Okay,
small committee that's appointed on a per term basis. And we have not had to use those since before I was appointed deputy clerk.
yeah, okay.
We have-
All right, I'm not going to belabor the fact that
Just a single appointment, right?
Correct.
is.
It is a single appointment and it does not require an actual committee because it is only one individual appointed under the specific act to address livestock losses. So they have their own terms outlined within the act and within the Ontario regulations.
Right, I believe we call the position livestock valuator or valuer. I don't know that there's been a great deal of work for that individual, but I haven't seen too many claims coming through. Okay, are there any other comments here, Councillor Hunter?
I have one comment under the suggestions there, change how council reviews and selects committee members. It's been since I've served on council the last number of times that we received, the administration receives people that put their names in, and then the mayor picks the people on it along with the staff. I really think that for all these committees, the names should all come to council. And council have input on who gets put on to the committees. Hasn't for quite a while.
So I think there's a request there to see the,
That'd be the third bullet point.
yeah, change how council reviews and selects the committee members.
Yeah.
Okay. Desire to see the nominees come forward and then, now that would have, they would have to come forward in an in-camera session.
Yeah.
And then be discussed in an in-camera session, and then the in-camera session would make a recommendation. And I just, the one thing that I would like to have is that, and I don't know that it requires a change, how council reviews and selects, but I think there should be some discussion about how council sort of feels the members are performing their functions, if I can put it that way. And realize that some of the volunteer members do perform their functions and others don't to the same extent. But I think that's something that should be looked at from time to time. Councillor.
Just to add on to that, I don't know where to begin to actually review how they do their job, but I think when the members put on the various committees, the administration, I think it should be up to the CEO, clerk maybe, but before they actually sit on the committee, I think it should be explained to them exactly what the perimeters are that they have to comment within that committee. That if it's a committee of zoning adjustment stuff, that's what you're there representing. You don't bring up other topics to do, has something to do that doesn't deal with that committee.
The mandate of that committee.
Yeah,
In other words, their job is to stick to the committee mandate.
yeah, not a platform for discussion of other items.
Can we just go back to the clerk just for a second? When these names come forward, and I know in some cases we have difficulty finding people to put their names forward, but once the names come forward to the clerk, is there a discussion with the individuals that put their name forward as to actually what the mandate of the committee is and what the expectations are? Do you have that discussion with them? I know I don't. I assume that it's been done.
So through the chair, once all of the nominees or submissions are gathered and we review with yourself and the CAO, I do reach out to the people that are interested and inform them of the appointment policy for obvious reasons, making sure that they're not related to anyone in our office directly, as well as I outline in the advertisement briefly, as well as whenever we're discussing it with the individual, I actually provide them the full committee terms of reference and outline what the committee purpose and mandate is. So they are informed of it, as well as I usually provide them with previous agendas, minutes, topics in regards to different bylaws that are continuously being referenced and reviewed. So they are informed.
Okay, thank you. The other thing I think we should bear in mind here is that this bylaw is basically a bylaw that has been developed by this and the previous term council. And it is unusual to have volunteer members on standing committees, which we are doing. And I think we should be aware of the fact that a different council may not take that idea to the same extent that we have. I guess are there any other comments from other members of the committee before I bring up one more issue? No? Okay, I'll bring up the last issue. On page 8 of 73, in the last paragraph of the clerk's briefing note, she says, unless otherwise directed or significant changes are made to the current terms of reference, staff will begin recruitment for the vacant positions on the Committee of the Whole, Administration and Finance, with appointments being made during the March or April meeting of council, depending on recruitment. And I would just like to suggest that, considering that it's going to take at least a month to get the names forward, and that possibly could happen by March, there's only 7 or 8 meetings of this committee left. And I'm just wondering whether it's worthwhile trying to recruit 2 members for that period of time. My personal feeling is that I don't feel comfortable trying to break somebody in for such a short period of time. I think they barely have time to get their feet underneath them. And then the appointment will end. So I just, that's just my personal feeling. I don't, as chair of the Admin Finance Committee, I don't know how others feel.
Just a Can I just comment on that as well, Mr. Mayor? And let's not forget also that not too distant future from now, this council becomes somewhat restricted or lame duck. So that would apply also to volunteer members. So you may have a good point there about leaving those positions open.
Other comments? Chair's looking for other comments and the clerk's looking for direction.
Real good success getting many volunteers to come forward. I don't know whether it's maybe it's a learning experience for 2 or 3 months. You don't really have much input. So unless the next council decides they want to carry on, the only bit of a restriction is, I think it's in our bylaws, the length of time somebody can serve on a committee, and it's deemed terms of council. So really, if you put somebody on for 5 months, that puts them on the block. They're been appointed as a term in that term of council. So that means that really, if more people puts their name forward after the next council ends, they're not eligible to have their name put forward for the next council unless nobody puts their name forward. So you could be restricting somebody who would like to maybe stay on for 8 years and restricting them to 4 years and 7 months. So provide more people put their name forward. If nobody puts their name forward, they can stay on.
Other comments?
Yeah, through the chair, I'd like to see the committee positions filled. I think that committee members, committee members offer valuable insight, and over my experience over the last 7 years, they bring a lot to the table. So even in a short period of time, I think that their input would be.
Councillor Dillabaugh, you haven't spoken.
No, I'm good, Mr. Mayor.
In which way?
I like to, the only thing I have, I do believe we do put it in the paper. Is that right, Rebecca?
Well, that's what we're talking about. Should it go in the paper or
I
not?
thought we did though.
No, the 2 vacant positions on Min Finance haven't been advertised yet, have they?
Through the chair, no, they have not.
But we do
That's
put
what
it
I'm-
in the paper. Any vote? Yeah, okay. No, I'm not. Yes. I'm either way with that. I mean, I agree with the mayor. Takes a while to get your feet wet, so. And we only have, what, 8 months?
I think maybe less than that, actually.
Okay.
Okay, so I only have one speaker speaking to perform the recruitment, to commence the recruitment process here. So I think that's not a real clear consensus of council.
I don't really care.
Beg pardon?
I don't care if somebody really feels that, what's administration feel, that's about it.
It's mostly a political thing. Not trying to put words in your
No,
mouth.
but through the chair, it is like the policy would indicate that when a vacancy becomes available, that we would typically advertise to fill that vacancy.
Yeah.
But I certainly understand that we're talking about a limited time frame.
It'll be interesting.
We're looking at like best case scenario. By the time the appointment is, you're looking at five meetings.
5 meetings, yeah, that's what I think too. So my personal, again, I don't see a broad consensus around the table to commence a recruitment exercise for 5 meetings. So I think Councillor Hunter's point is strong. Why, let's just leave the slate clean, and another council can start with a clean slate. Okay, I don't know whether that provides you with the direction that you're looking for, but that's a discussion, and you've heard the discussion.
Thank you.
I'm going to move on, and the next item on the agenda is item number 7, and item number 7 comes the 4th quarter building report. And there is a briefing note with the report. And the report is in front of us, both large and small. Large print that we can read, small print that we can't. But there is a lot of good news in this fourth quarter building report. And I don't think that the chief bylaw official is here to speak to the report. So Mr. Grant, did you want to speak to the report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would certainly agree that this is a sort of once again, a good news story with respect to the number of building permits at 166 issued and 39 single residential units compared to, I believe, 23 last year. So a good solid increase in that regard. And with respect to the project value of in 2020 was a little over 10 million, and the project value in 2021 was a little over 24 million. With respect to permit fees in 2020 was around 113,000. And the permit fees through 2021 were a little over 177,000. So I think all in all, I think that the committee is aware that the building department has been extremely busy over the last year and a half. And it appears that 2022 is starting to ramp up already.
So discussion, if any? Councilor Dilba.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Greenfield, is it on here? That big expansion that they were doing in 2021? It can't be on here. Is it through the chair to the CEO?
So through the chair, there are certainly some of those components. It's been a staged building permits issued in that regard. So certainly some of those some of those have been issued.
2022.
Yeah, the big thing is though that that whole project is I thought it was 100 and some million.
125.
Yeah.
It was 100 when it came and told us it went up to 25.
Yeah, 125 million, and
And it's
that's project value.
yes.
And I mean, what we're seeing here is only 5 million, which would seem to me not to be included here.
Yeah, but
Go ahead.
it's 125 million, but all we're issuing is building permits for the actual buildings taking place, the water,
But
sewer,
that's
sewer and
value.
gravel and roads and stuff was the major
Oh,
component of it. But the
yeah.
road structure
There's
itself was millions of dollars.
Yeah,
Gravel
we don't even
alone was
issue
over $1
permits
million.
for the piping, do we? No, that's all civil work.
We don't. There's a good portion of that would not fall under a building.
But the cable company too was 20 million.
What's that?
The cable company, that was 20 million.
Yeah, but it's not a building, it's not accessible. We don't issue a permit for it.
We get kind of stuck the same as solar panels that we
Yeah.
$100 million solar panels when we get a $5,000 tax assessment.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's a good question, Councillor Dilba, and that brings to light some interesting things. You know, I'll give you an example how it pertains. It got to the point in the north where the mines were taking great, huge 10,000, 20,000 square foot shops that were on surface, closing them down, destroying the buildings, and moving the whole shop 3 floors underground so that it would not attract assessment. That's the kind of thing that, you know, some things attract assessment, some things don't. Simple as that. Okay, so a very good fourth quarter for the building department. And you'll remember at the beginning of the year, we were really worried that we would have to draw from the building department reserve fund to cover the expenses of the building department. And yet you can see, as Mr. Grant has outlined, we've collected $177,000 in permit fees. So this year, the department will more than finance its operation through its fees. And I think there will be, as we'll see a little bit later in the agenda, there will be an opportunity to transfer some dollars from the building department fees to the reserve account instead of the other way around. So that's all good news. So now I'm going to go to the next item on the agenda.
Could I ask one?
Yes, go ahead.
We're still on, through you to the CEO, with all the 166 building permits issued, and most of the time we're working with CEO doing it all here. Have we had any comments from our construction family, satisfaction, dissatisfaction, or? He's had a busy year. We seem to have got a lot done. I just wonder if it's being appreciated by our contractors and stuff, the extra mile. I think that along with some extra help that he's been getting from Wendy and Rebecca and stuff along here to do this in our speed of processing stuff.
So through the chair, I would say that the general feedback that we're getting is positive, that the contractors are satisfied with the responsiveness that's taking place within the department. And a few of the industrial businesses have provided some glowing working with the building.
My main reason for asking, because I wanted it on record, because I have had comments in business I'm associated with. I've heard a lot of great comments about the speed of what they're allowed to move ahead and get stuff done. So compared to other areas they're working in, they seem to be very glowing for the way staff here can handle it. So.
Through the chair, I'm sure to pass that on.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now I'm proceeding on to the next item on the agenda, which is the bylaw report, item number 7B, the fourth quarter bylaw report. And so there is a briefing note here from the bylaw officer and the clerk. And so this report is now on the table, and through the CAO, did you want to have the clerk outline anything from this report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I will have the clerk give you some highlights with respect to the report.
Thank you. So the fourth quarter bylaw report, as you can see, had a fairly steady 2021, a slight decrease compared to 2020. However, we were expecting the slight overall decrease based on more people returning back to some sense of normalcy in 2021 pandemic. So we did see a slight decrease. However, the numbers are still fairly consistent from previous years of reporting. In total, the bylaw officer responded to 47 calls, with 77 attendances at various services and addresses. You can see he's highlighted clean yards, animal control, a couple of general bylaw inquiries that may have led to additional bylaw concerns, or it could have led to different departmental information. Dumping, parking violations, as well as a number of winter parking violations for snow removal, or where the person was parked during the snow removal process. 28 notices were provided throughout the month of December, and it is continuing throughout January and February into the fourth quarter, into the first quarter of 2022. We do have a number of files still open from 2021 due to mostly clean yards concerns. Some of them are in the court system waiting for our first appearance or for trial. And there are a couple that we have left open just as a reminder for him to follow up with in the spring, as we've granted a couple of individuals due to the weather now in this time of year to reach compliance in the spring.
And so those are your opening remarks. The floor is open for discussion. Anyone? As I see some hands, I'm going to move on here. Councillor Dillabaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor. Mr. Williams, are you saying we only have 15 work orders open right now?
Through the chair, that was from the fourth quarter. So from fourth quarter, which ends December 31st to current, we have many new work orders open, but those are work orders outstanding at year end.
Year end, December 31st, 2021 was only 15.
Correct. Throughout the whole year, where we had
Very good.
a total of 263.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. And I have to give our bylaw officer congratulations. As you know, don't have a lot of patience, and I don't have a lot of patience for some of this stuff. But I see with him going back and working with some of these taxpayers, it's paying off. We're getting we're getting successful stories. So I'd like to thank him for continuing the way he does it. I gotta give him credit. I wouldn't have the patience, but he's doing well, and I see we're getting results. So
Thank you. I'll pass that along.
I tip my hat to him. Thank you.
Any further questions before I move on? Okay, I'm moving on then to item number 7C, which is the fourth quarter Treasury and Reserve Report. And there are 6 reports attached to this item on the agenda. They're listed there in order, and I'm proposing to take them one at a time in the order in which you see them on the briefing note. And so from the chair through to the CAO, did you want to have the treasurer begin with the first one and work our way through this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will turn this over to our treasurer. Review the individual reports.
So good evening, Council. The four or five reports that you see in front of you are presented to Council or Committee each quarter. The very first one is the pre-audit financial, which really describes the cash and liabilities for the township. I made some notes on the sides where you can see the difference between last year in 2021 to the prior year of 2020. The biggest difference, of course, is the tax receivable, and that's the story that I want to impart on Council tonight. Most of the other ones are fairly consistent overall. We are still waiting, of course, for equity changes in RSL, Rio St. Lawrence, and equity changes in the port. Those usually come to us after the audits, as well as the landfill and your capital assets. Once the auditors have done the review of the audit financials, then those numbers they could adjust. But the biggest story really is the tax receivables. And if you look in the information item prior to that on page 31 of 73, I wanted to demonstrate basically the township is in charge of collecting both counties, school boards, and municipal taxes. And the ending balance or receivable balance is as a result of collecting all of those levies. So I wanted to kind of go back from the beginning of 2015, which is when I started with the municipality, and trying to show the efforts between the tax clerk and myself on the collections. The only blip in the schedule here is 2017, and as we all know, that was when we had the 730 truck stop fire costs were added to the tax account. So that increased in 2017, but then you can see we've made progressive inroads in receivable balances, despite the fact that we're actually billing more taxes each year. I don't know if you have any questions on those, but I can move on to the long-term debt.
So
The only thing,
Well,
Okay, sorry.
yeah, so just before you move on to the long-term debt, which is the next report, I do want to take note of the issue that you just brought up, where our year-ending balance, December 31st, 2021, year-ending balance of taxes receivable was 534,892 out of the 11,850,000 that was levied. And so 4.51% is not to be sneezed upon. And so I'll echo thanks of council for the work that's been done by staff to reduce that percentage receivable the way you've outlined it here. So I just wanted to make that comment before you went on. Anyone else want to jump in here before the treasurer goes on to the long-term debt schedule?
I just had circled that to Mr. Mayor in red, treasurer, a big thank you. So.
Okay, and I see the deputy mayor indicating the same, and Councilor Hunter.
I think one thing wants to get pointed out, I think in the extreme effort of our treasurer on these collecting is that she's really made an effort of educating our people that taxes can be paid monthly and that we can people are in debt, that they can set up a payment plan to get it paid back. And I think this is one of the things that's really helped pull it down. Before, people were overburdened. I got 2 years taxes and there's no way I'm ever going to be able to pay it. And I think with her being a very good communicator with them and getting payment plans set up, that we've alleviated a lot of stress on some of our taxpayers. We're really stressed out about how we're going to get the taxes paid. So.
That's a good point, and I maybe through the CAO, or yes, through the CAO to the treasurer, can you tell us how many or what success you're having in getting people onto the monthly payment plans versus, let's say, 2 years ago?
We've certainly seen an increase in the pre-authorized payment plan for sure. I would say we were a couple of years ago around the 600 accounts on that. We're probably closer to the 700 within a couple of years. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but initially when pre-authorized payment was an option, it was a slow uptake on getting people on the pre-authorized, but we're still seeing more and more people even this year asking about going on pre-authorized. And it's really discussed when we send out these collection letters, both in September and January. That is one of the options that we provide. We even provide a payment plan outline saying, if what is your monthly amount, and we set out how quickly that's going to get paid down the tax arrears. And we work with everybody in whatever means that they can.
So just a quick question in there. So 600 or so on prepayment, possibly coming up close to 700. Out of how many tax accounts would we be running? 1,500, 2,000?
We run just shy of 3,000.
3,000.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much. Further questions, Councilor Hunter? No. No follow-up? Okay, any additional questions here before I move on to the next item? So the next item is the long-term debt schedule as of December the 31st, and there's a new schedule in front of you, just slightly larger than the one that was circulated. And so through the CAO to the treasurer again, if you would, please.
Certainly. The only difference in the schedule in this fourth quarter from the prior quarter is the addition of the case grader loan. That's really the only difference compared to when you saw this same schedule in September at the third quarter.
So we got two of these loans that are dropping off this year. And I think they total, if I'm reading this correctly, they are totaling about $48,000. Is that correct? That's the two that ended March and January of 2022.
The annual payments definitely total that value, sir. Yes.
Any other questions with regard to this long-term debt schedule?
I have one, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Lost it, so I'll pick this. I just, the tile drain loans, farm tile drain, we got the JRDR, which I know that one down in Ventnor. What is a farm tile drains? For 25,000 left.
Right. So I think that is actually one farmer right now was set up a long time ago in terms of they would drain their properties and we would loan them, like take out the money for them on behalf of them to do that work. And then they pay down pay the loan through the township through. So we have to send the payment through to the ministry. And the farm benefiting farmer pays the township to pay that loan. It's really just an in and out. There's no impact to tax.
Oh, right, so it's like seven, I guess, paid by the owner and this is paid by the farmer.
Yeah,
7
yeah.
and 8, same.
Tile drain and the JRDR, the drainage are loans that we set up, the township sets up and then the benefiting owners pay back directly the loan.
Thank you.
Any other questions here before I have one? So I'm going to take advantage of the fact we've got this in front of us to ask a question. A few years ago, we had a situation where there was an appeal in regard to work that was done by an individual on a drain. And the appeal went against the farm. And it was a few $1,000s actually. And I think that individual went into a repayment agreement with us. Is that captured here any place in either 7 or 8? And do you know what I'm referring to without me using names?
I think it's
Through the chair, certainly I do. And no, it isn't because it's an internal debt that the township is, we did not take an external debt to service that. It's basically set up as a township liability or a receivable, I guess more or less it's a receivable that it's under long-term receivable as opposed to a debt, because we did go externally to get that, to borrow that money to service that particular thing. We just made an arrangement with the property owner for them to repay the township over a period of time.
So it's set up as a long-term receivable. Is it performing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there other questions with regard to this one then before I go on to the next one? All right, so the next one then is the capital project status report as of December the 31st. And that's the next report that you have in front of you. So again, through the chair, to the CAO, if you would please.
Thank you.
Did you want to speak to this, CAO?
By all means, Madam Treasurer, go ahead.
For the most part, all of our capital is finished. Within the agenda package tonight, council does see a report, an action item with respect to any projects that didn't final in 2021 to carry forward those funds that were taxed in 21 to be utilized in 2022. But where we are, we've seen a lot of savings in some of our capital. Our hot mix was under budget. You can kind of go down through. There's quite a few areas where there were savings within our capital. I don't know if there's any other questions specific, but.
So the amount that you're requesting to whip forward is not the total difference between the 2021 budget and the year-to-date expense then? It's a different.
No. Yeah, no, through the chair, it would be specific to a project. If the project is complete, we won't whip the funds that are, if we had an under variance or an under budget in let's say hot mix, we would not whip those funds forward. We would just put those into the overall surplus. It's specific projects where the project didn't get complete in 2021 that we want to carry that money forward to do the project in 22.
Okay, further questions, if any, from the committee? Okay, I see none coming forward. Oh, Councillor Cameron, or Councillor Dillabaugh.
Thank you. Do the chair to the CEO, facility not here. The dispensable dehumidifier completed. Do we have two there now or just one? Can you actually help? I
Through
know.
through the chair, I can't confidently answer that.
I know two in Cardinal. I'm not sure. Does anybody know? John?
There used to be one up front. one
I know you got two there.
Or the ones up
Do we have
front
two
now.
here now?
You don't know whether there's still the one up
I
front.
thought that was our intention, but
Yeah.
maybe Thursday I'll ask.
I will follow up and update.
There's one up front, just on the corner.
Just,
I believe there's two, but I don't want to.
And the Connell Road storm pipe, I remember that one. That was, that looks like it was way under budget, eh? No, over budget,
So
sorry.
it was over budget.
Yeah, okay. And then you got a big tricky job we were looking at that.
Yeah,
So
yes.
that's only two I had concerns about. Thank you.
Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Madam Treasurer. I'm just curious about the year-end or year-to-date expenses. Are they pretty, for the figures that are on here, are they pretty much complete now, or are there still something that's outstanding?
Through the chair, I'm gonna say I'm about 99% sure that these numbers are accurate. The trouble with the system we have right now is we have no PO system to track any additional expenses. And I do know that, you know, even just earlier last week, we had some expenses come in, not specific to capital, but we have seen some invoices trickle in from vendors, which, you know, they were December invoices and we're getting them now, you know, second week of February.
And just a follow-up question, Mr. Mayor, and that is, when we come in under budget, we'll say there's a couple here that are somewhere around the $10,000 mark or so that are now completed. The money that was budgeted for and not used, where does that money go?
So it gets accumulated in the overall surplus of the township at the end of the year. So, and there are some areas where we're overspent, as
Yes,
Councillor
I-
Dillabaugh pointed out. So it's a cumulative effect. So it all goes in the same pot, I guess to say. And what the net of, if it's a surplus, then some of that savings in, for instance, hot mix would help to either offset the purchase of, we were able to put the sidewalk plow in the 21 at capital. And then, you know, pay for some overages in some other areas, but it usually just gets put into the overall surplus at the end of the year.
Okay, and then just one more, and then thank you, Madam Treasurer, and then just one follow-up question regarding that. Do we get a report on the surplus or deficit on this on these transactions or projects?
That's it.
Well, through the chair, it won't be on the specific capital projects individually. You see that fourth quarter, that's basically what you're going to see. What I will bring forward is usually in March or April, when the auditors have done their final review of the overall revenues and expenses. I'll bring a surplus or / deficit report that explains the overall surplus or / deficit and the system right now is our tax rate bylaw indicates that the council would divide that surplus up based over the capital reserves based on a 10-year forecasted capital replacement.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, so that seems to be the discussion with regard to the capital project status report. The next item is the fourth item, the modernization funding. Council approved expenditures to December the 31st. And that report is on page 35 of 73. And maybe just to start off the discussion here, if we could, and through the CAO, I'll just ask the question of the treasurer. So right at the bottom of the report, the balance in the reserve fund is 312,616.36. And then in the next column, in which the heading is remaining amount committed, is 253,400. So am I to read that of the 312,616, 253 of that is already committed? So the only uncommitted available is about 59,000. Is that correct?
Actually, through the chair, that's the reverse. So the total of 21 expenses of 20,705 is committed. Previously committed from 2020 is 38,500. So we've committed 59,000 of the 312, leaving a balance of 253 available to be. I struggled with trying to figure out how to actually show that 253, but that's basically what it is. So we've committed in 2021, the 20,705. Still committed from our 2020 resolutions is 38.5. So the total of committed is 59.2, and take that off your 312.
Okay, so I read that the wrong way. Appreciate you clarifying that for me. Now, can you remind me of what the committed 20,705 from 2021 was for, and is that likely to be expended?
So through the chair, you can see the 2021 expenses of 27.5. The letter folding machine is 10,705. And actually we have already got the letter folding machine, and the other 10,000 is the commuter pilot project. We have not received an invoice yet from the town of Prescott, but once we do, then that money will be flowed to the town of Prescott for the pilot project.
Okay, so the 2705 is basically gone.
It's committed. It hasn't been paid yet.
Yep. Yeah, no, exactly. But now what is the commitment from 2020 of 38,000?
It's combined in a couple of different areas. Website, mainly due to the website, because we still have the app portion of the website project. And I think I'm just trying to think of what other ones are still. Think of some of the other 2020s that we had that we haven't spent all the money. PGIS maybe.
Yeah, the job site challenge, there's still some remaining there, I believe.
Yeah, and the building department new website or new software. We did 1 year, and the commitment was to support that software for 2 years.
Okay, I appreciate those clarifications. Are there anything else that you'd like to highlight from this report?
No, it's just a continuation of what you would have saw in the third quarter. There wasn't too much more extra that was added to this particular report. It would be just the update of the interest and the addition of the letter folding machine, pretty much.
Okay, other questions, Deputy Mayor?
Two, if I may. One that I didn't have before this, or I would have asked by email, but to the treasurer, you brought up that some of the 2020 was for the app development.
Mhm.
we procure someone to develop the app, and why, if so, why hasn't it been done? Are we still waiting on them, or?
Actually, we did procure, so eSolutions was the bidding, the winning bidder for the website / app. We had a little bit of a stumbling block with the app aspect to that, because the platform that they had originally offered through their quote wasn't going to be supported anymore by, I forget what the name of the company was, sorry. So we're trying to find other methods to develop the app through eSolutions.
Yes, go ahead.
So through the chair, back to the treasurer, so does that, are we still through that procurement, are we still committed to them, or for that app to be developed, or is that something council could consider if they no longer wanted an app? Is that something they could consider getting back out of?
That is a good question. I'm not sure I can answer that specifically. Maybe the CAO or clerk can make some clarification on that.
Mr. CIO, I think there's I mean, you can see we're carrying a payable here, a committed payable. What is the status of the project? I guess that's the essence of the question.
Through the chair, I'll need to revisit where we are exactly on that and see about the potential with respect to that. If that's something that council would like to potentially sort of scrap the app, so to speak, at this particular time, to see what the commitment and the agreement is to revisit that agreement.
Okay, so we'll look forward to a report and a recommendation.
Can I ask one more? And it's not about the app, it was the second question about the bottom line, the 253 to the treasurer. And this year's budget of that 253, if memory serves me right, we've spent 250 of it. Is that correct?
I'd have to refresh. I know that we had the draft budget has 125. No, 125 was coming from. I'd have to refresh the capital budget. Basically, the bulk of that 250 is going to go towards the administration upgrades, and I believe some of it will also go towards the food cycle science is another one.
There's only 9,000 left, I think.
Yeah, there's not going to be a whole lot. If you look back on one of the last budget reserve schedule, proposed reserve schedule, that outlines how much of that money would be left over.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Okay, okay, go ahead, Councilor Hayes.
Out of that website, the 38,510, you're saying that's part of the website. Can we get an actual cost, what that website is out of that 38 with our report to the chair, please?
Well, to impartial answer to the councillor's question, is it correct that we've paid for the website portion of the project, and the 38,000 that we see here was for the app portion? Is that correct?
Through the chair, I believe that for the website portion, we would have actually spent the 23,591.34 for the website portion, if I'm not mistaken.
Where did you get that? To the CEO? That amount?
If you look under the 2020 section, you'll see resolution 2020-357.
Yeah. Oh, I see, yeah.
Website and app, RFP.
Is that the 39,150?
I believe the 23,591,34 is what was spent on the website with the remaining for the app. If I'm not mistaken.
So the remaining for the app is the 38.
25,400.
Well, the number on this report is still committed from 2020, 38,500.
But that part of that is a job site challenge, duly chair and the software plus the website.
Oh, I see.
In that.
Yeah, I see your point. Okay,
So we did get a number for the app though, was 25,000,
23.
23, and that's modernization dollars, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
okay, so that, no further questions with regard to that. I'm going on to item number 5, which is the pre-audit reserve and reserve fund report as of December the 31st. That's the report that's on page 36 of 73. So, questions with regard to this report? I don't see any hands going up, so maybe I'll jump in here first. So I'm just looking at this report now, and this report is, it says as of December the 31st, 2021, and I'm getting this report on February the 14th. And this report is showing that the estimated balance, I'm going right to the bottom right-hand corner, the estimated balance in the reserve accounts totals 8,489,000 as of December the 31st on this report. And the report that I got on February the 2nd, after, I guess it was after budget meeting number 2, showed the estimated balance on December the 31st, 2021 of 8,923,000. So I'm just having a hard time, maybe you can help me understand the $400,000 difference in the same two numbers, in those two numbers pertaining to the same time frame. They're both estimated balances at December 31, 2021.
Certainly. So the February 2nd is what is the schedule you're referring to, Chair?
Yeah, the February 22nd, February 2nd.
So the February 2nd is a proposed draft reserve schedule for budget. Am I incorrect or correct on that?
No, it says after budget number 2, but that's not the issue. The issue
No.
was the balance on December the 31st, 2021.
Right. What I'm trying to determine is that the February 2nd reserve schedule was related to budget, not necessarily actuals. So I would have to see both schedules side by side, sir, to see what the difference is, to be able to determine what's the difference. I'm sorry, I cannot answer that question this evening without looking and comparing those two schedules together.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks very much. Maybe we can get a follow-up on that. Other questions? Or are there other things you wanted to highlight from this report?
No, there still certainly is going to be a change to the December 31st, 2021 number based on surplus and deficit and any other audit adjustments that the auditors are suggesting. Mainly due, as we already know, with the building department, you see the balance in that reserve is a negative 5,000. And we know that we're going to be putting money into that reserve, so the balance will change with that transfer into the building department reserve.
Yeah.
And then each of the water and sewer systems, whatever the deficit or surplus in each of those water sewers will be a year-end adjustment to each of those balances as well.
Okay, so are there any other questions here with regard to this report before I go to the next? Okay, so now go to report number 6, which is a detailed report of tax receivables on December 31. And that's the one that's on page 37 of 73. Detailed report of the receivables. Now, again, this is basically, it's basically the same, or is it the same information that we saw on page 31, just in a slightly different format?
It just details so in the first report, it only showed you the bottom line number. This actually details it out by year to see the change in year over year, so that council can see where the collections are taking place.
Okay, so if I look at this report and I look at the year 2017, so the amount owing from 2017 as of December the 31st, 2021 is $469.53. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then above that, the number 10,674, that's the amount owing from 2018 taxes.
Correct.
And then 27 is from 2019. The 124 is from 2020. And the 336 is from 2021. So my question is, I understand that we have 2 properties up for tax sale right now. Apparently, they're in the paper, as I'm hearing from a constituent. And I'll have a question about that in a minute. But do those ones that are up for tax sale, do they relate back to 2017, 2018?
Yes,
they must both be from. Go ahead.
Yes, they would. They would have, those tax sale properties would have the arrears that were aging back to 18 and 17.
Okay, now would any of the 2019s be up for tax sale at this point?
Certainly, because anything that's 2 years or more in arrears could potentially be, and the 2 that are up for tax sale right now are 2 years or more in arrears.
Okay. So, any other questions with regard to this before I go on with another line of questioning as it pertains to the tax sales, since we're talking about tax sales? So we hire a company to administer or run these tax sales for us. Is that correct?
Not truly. We hire a company called Real Tax to actually deliver all the registered letters or notices within a prescribed timeline that is set out by the province. So they do all that preliminary work for us, do the title searches to determine any other interested parties on the property in order for them to also be served with the same notices. But the tax sale itself is run by myself and the tax clerk here. So the tender packages come to the township, and both the tax clerk and myself have been fielding questions from interested people for the last couple of weeks since it started advertising in late January. And we will be the ones collecting the bids and then opening the tenders and then proceeding to award if that's what happens.
Oh, okay. So then people that have questions about these properties should be calling you.
That is correct. They should be calling the township to speak to myself.
Okay, all right. That's where I'll refer them then. I thought I had to refer them to Real Tax. So I'm told now that Real Tax is offering to send them or sell them a package of some sort for $200 or something. That's in addition to what we're paying them, is it not?
No, that is actually not true. Real Tax does not provide the tender packages. They gave us a number of tender packages, but there is a website called ontariotaxsales.ca. And if you want to get a package through Ontario Tax Sales, they charge you $25 for that tax sale tender package.
Oh, I'm hearing the number 200 or 250. Okay, all right, I'll check that out. Thanks very much. What is the closing date on those tax sales, if you wouldn't mind?
February 23rd, next Wednesday at 3 o'clock.
February 23rd, 3 p.m. And the packages will come here to this office.
We
Great.
already have the packages here to be picked up if anybody's interested in information, and they have to be dropped off before 3 o'clock. The bids themselves have to be dropped off at the township before 3 o'clock on the 23rd.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions with regard to this report before I move on? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move on then. And so moving on gets me to item number 7D, which is the fourth quarter budget variance report. And that briefing note appears on page 38 of 73. And so again, I'll go to the CAO if you want to have the treasurer issue some highlights here, please.
Thank you. Treasurer Wood.
Certainly. Through the chair, you can see the report after the information item. You'll see a 4-page report that describes the variance of right now. We're looking at a surplus of 536,000. That sounds like a lot, but when we take out the building department 74,000, take out the WIP so that we have to pull the WIP, we have to actually expense the WIP of 303. I did a little chart so that you can see that we take that off. The other thing is in the agricultural drainage, there was a legal unspent of 10,000 that I'm hoping that we can put into the reserve so that we don't have to tax for a transfer to that reserve. There's still modernization funding that has not been recognized as revenue in this year, and that's only because when there's money coming from a reserve fund, I typically get a resolution from council just so that you're made aware of the actual amount that is flowing from the reserve fund into the general fund. And the other outstanding item is we have still not been able to submit our grant claim for the phase 2 of our waterfront. So there's another additional $100,000. So when you net all that out, the surplus at this point stands at 344,000. Some of the savings that are, or some of the things that contribute to that 344 is additional taxation. So mainly to do with supplementary tax billing of 35,000. We also have some savings, of course, in our capital through the hot mix, through the dehumidifier, also through the administration capital. We did not do the $10,000 project in capital for admin. So that comes to 96. We had some unbudgeted revenues due to the surplus of disposal of public works assets of 37. And our overall departmental operating costs expenses were under budget by about 74,000, or just shy of 1% of the overall budget. So I don't know if there's anything else that you want me to point out, but that's basically the summation of the fourth quarter.
Floor is open for questions. Okay, so I don't hear any questions coming forward. And so the detailed budget to actual, sorry, okay, Councillor Dillawa, had a catch.
Sorry, Mr.
I looked in your direction, but I
I
didn't
know,
see
I
you.
didn't get my hand up quick enough. Duly chair to Madam Treasurer. So is it 536, for argument's sake, minus the 344 leaves us a net of 192 surplus? No. Okay,
No, if you look at the chart that's on page 38 of 73,
I'm here.
okay, so I've got the 536. I'm taking away so some of that surplus is associated to the building reserve, right?
That goes
so that's
straight to that
the seven-
reserve account.
Mhm.
Right,
It's
so
not-
that's
it's not
74.
surplus.
So you
It's a
took the 303, the 74, and the 10 away?
And we're
They go
taking all
straight to
those,
reserve accounts.
we're going to take those out. One goes into the reserve, one goes whipped forward to 22, and the other will go into a reserve. Then there are two additional revenues that have not been recognized within the report attached. That makes the final surplus an adjusted surplus of 344.
Oh, I gotcha. Thank you. I see it now. Thank you so much.
All right, so now I'm on the detail, which is page 40 and 41 of 73. Actually it goes over to 42 and 43. So any questions arising from those 4 pages? And just point out, we've been seeing pieces of this during our budget discussions. So if there are no questions here, I'm about to move on. And so that takes me to item number 7E, which is the 2021 work in progress report. And that is the briefing note that you see on page 44, culminating in the recommendation on page 45. Floor is open for discussion. And just to clarify, on page 44, where the treasurer notes in the notes, amount to be placed in account number 011910 and included in the 22 budget, all of this money that's being whipped forward was budgeted for in 2021, not spent, and it's being put into a special account to be used in 2022. Is that the way to look at that?
That is correct. That's what we typically have done so that we're not taxing for this money. We've already taxed for it, so we're just pushing that money forward into 22.
Questions here? And the chair is looking for a mover and a seconder to move the recommendation forward. Councillor Hunter moving. Does he have a seconder?
He does.
Councillor Cameron seconding. Now, further discussion before I call the question on this recommendation. Seeing no hands. I'm about to call the question. Those in favor? Motion is carried. Right, those are the amounts that will be transferred forward. And so now I'm at item number group benefits. That's 7F, group benefit plan renewal. And that's the page 46 and 47 of the package, culminating with the recommendation on page 47. Floor is open for discussion. Seeing no one raise any hands,
Well, I may be there. I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
go ahead.
On page 48,
41.
48,
Oh, yes, I can hardly see it, but I got it.
yes. I'm going over to the column where it says Sun Life 2022. And there's a 29 point, almost 30% increase. And then I go to the Desjardins quoted premiums. And it's 20.99, 21, which is a considerable difference.
That's a savings.
That, yes. So the 29.21 is not a savings. It's an increase in tech. It's an increase over 2021.
That's correct. And
Yes.
I think that's highlighted in the briefing note,
Yes, it is.
along with a note of caution. if I recall correctly.
Yes.
I think maybe I'll ask the questions on the floor. I'll ask the CAO to address the question.
Through the chair, yeah, what, I guess sort of our initial, or at least the initial proposal from Sun Life was an increase of 49%.
49?
49, if you look at the top of page 47 of 73. And Aikman was able to renegotiate that down to 35%. We had met with Aikman and indicated that 35% was not acceptable, and they went back and Sun Life revised the premiums to the 29.2. At the same time, they also went out to see if there's others that may offer the plan, and Desjardins would be able to offer basically a 21% increase in 2022, and with an 11.3% increase in 2023. So really totaling almost 32%.
So I take it, just follow-up question through the chair. So I take it then Sun Life for 2023 is not going to increase their rates. Do I understand that correctly?
The renewal with Sun Life would just be for 2022, and the look may be to look at going out for 2023.
Okay, I'm just a little confused as to why you put Desjardins in at 2023 when we're really not even there yet. But
Well, the proposal back from Desjardins was basically that would take us let's say 18 months or so. That would take us to the end of 2023.
okay,
So they were really prepared to provide a price just simply for 2022.
okay, I understand that. Yeah. However, I'm still thinking this 9%. It's a lot of savings.
Through the chair, it is a substantial effort to switch with respect to some of those areas. So I think at this particular time, if we look at the overall with respect to page 46, the historical over the past 4 years, from 2019 all the way up, we're averaging about the 2.5% each year. The reality is, though, it's 29% in 1 year.
Yeah.
We had a substantial savings of 21% in 2020, and no change in 2021. And this is really our first renewal with Sun Life.
I have no other questions at this
Deputy
time.
Mayor?
Just one question. In the negotiation, from the 49 to the 35 down to the 29.2, we give anything up to get it to 29.2? I mean, that's a 20% decrease
Yeah, it is.
in what their original cost was. Did they increase our deductible, or did they, did we give anything up to get that decrease, or did they just knock 20%? I'm sure negotiations.
I believe WA Payment and Associate to negotiation to reduce that.
Same service, 20% less. It's crazy.
I almost think it's a game.
Any further discussion with regard to this, Councillor Hunter?
Well, I think it appears to me that all these insurance companies is just kind of a game. They'll come in and give you a big cut for 1 year to get you, and when they jump it right up to next year, I think Sun Life gave a statement for 2 years, they give us a real big cut over what we had been paying. If I recall correctly, we actually got along the way that we picked up, so I don't really see the point of switching for all the work. And I know being when my school board switched once, place premiums, there was a real hodgepodge for about 8 months afterwards for collecting, getting stuff paid and getting stuff collected. It was a real one was under one and then it switched and the other one's, oh, no, you're under there, but I gotta pay now. I can see where the staff gets there's quite an effort just to switch. So.
Then, Deputy Mayor.
So through this agreement or discussion, whatever, Desjardins has quoted for 2022 and 2023 for a total of 32.28. Is it possible to have Sun Life quote for 2023 then as well, or why didn't they? Then we'd be comparing apples to apples, right?
Well, through the chair, I believe that when we went out, you know, for a renewal with respect to Sun Life originally, they had done that 16 or 18 month time frame, which was that sort of year and a half. With Sun Life, it's just the annual 1 year review, so to speak. So there, it was not a full go to market like we had done in 2019.
Okay, the chair is looking for further discussion or a mover and a seconder to put the recommendation forward. Councillor Hunter?
I move the recommendation.
Councillor Hunter moving. Does he have a second? I'll second that. Deputy Mayor Deschamps seconding. Further discussion, if any, before I call the question? Hearing none. Those in favor? Motion is carried. Sun Life's got us for another year. Now I'm at item number 7G, which is accounts payable procedures. And so I'm going to let the treasurer, through the CAO, the treasurer will speak to this report. But just before she begins, I just want to make council aware of something. We did make a very significant change back in October of 2020, and the treasurer will outline that change. And it has a significant impact on the mayor and the mayor's responsibility, because council is aware that the mayor signs the checks, or one of the signing authorities on the check. So there's 2 members of staff that are signing authorities and 2 elected officials, which is either the mayor or the deputy mayor. And part of the statutory responsibility is the check signing. So prior to this change that we made, there, most of our accounts were being paid by checks, and there was a fair number of checks to sign. That's no longer the case. So we can no longer say that all checks are signed by an elected official and left in the municipality in the office until council approves the disbursement sheets, because we're now approving electronic transfers. And so I just want you to be aware that it has a major effect on the mayor's responsibilities. And after the treasurer outlines the change that we've made and how these changes affect that particular function, I'll speak a little bit further at that stage, but just be aware of that functionality, that change of functionality. So through the CAO, if you have the treasurer speak to this briefing note, please.
Certainly.
Certainly, through the chair, I brought the briefing note forward to committee just to give a refresher on what the procedure is that we put in place back in 2020, and the fact that it's been in operation now for 14 months. The auditors during the 2020 audit reviewed the procedure And you can see in their page 2 of their audit findings report, their what they had seen in the internal controls specific to this procedure. The audit management letter has never had it in the 2020 audit, did not address any issues around accounts payable. It actually was still more concerned about cash receipts because of the setup. We actually don't have as many cash payments coming in anymore. So I imagine in the 21 audit, it'll be even less of an issue with respect to the auditors. But we chose the EFT because, or brought forward EFT as an option. Many of our vendors are wanting to be paid this way. It's a much more secure way to be paid. Checks can easily be, can have check fraud quite easily, and it lessens that. It's a lot more secure. We, as a township, have a better increase in our cash flow. So we know when the money is out of our bank account, and we're not, looking to find floating checks that are going to show up, 3 or 4 months down the road, and not be cashed or, lost or stolen and then fraudulently copied. We've eliminated a lot of postage and stationery costs associated it, and minimized all the labor associated. As council knows, the finance team is really a complement of 3, so 2 clerks and myself. So anything that we can do to build capacity in that finance department was brought forward through the service delivery review, that was an option that we should be looking at, and we are finding those efficiencies. The other thing is, we're not going to see those, as we said, lost in the mail, or if there's a service delivery issue with Canada Post, we're not going to have those issues respective of that. The only thing that hasn't changed really differently is that council still gets the list of approvals. There's three different types of payments that are included in those disbursements. Pre-authorized debits, where things like hydro and Bell and items like that are withdrawn from our bank, from the township's bank account. So council gets to review all of those withdrawals. There are still checks because there's still vendors that want checks. They're not prepared to give EFT information, but then there has been a bigger increase in EFT processes.
Okay, is that? I don't want to interrupt you.
No, that's all I have to outline the report itself.
Okay, so Councillor Cameron.
Yes, I'm pretty sure I know that, so I'm just looking for confirmation of it. The electronic transfer that we do now on the disbursements, those bills are not paid until council authorizes the payment. That is correct, right?
The EFT file, there are two file sets that are sent out, one mid-month and one at the end of the month. So
some are,
we'll see them the same. Sorry, the council sees the EFT disbursements the same as they do the pre-authorized. They see them subsequent to the payment actually being, but as I've explained to the chair or the mayor previously, the delegation of authority for the CAO and myself is that we are paying bills based on within budget, as well as within our delegated authority. If it's over our delegated authority of 50,000, then it would come to council regardless. We have to get a resolution of council to pay a bill over our delegated authority. Once we have that resolution, then we would use that resolution as our means of paying that vendor.
But in direct answer to the councillor's questions, the electronic fund transfers occur before council has seen and approved the disbursement sheets. At least the first batch goes out before council has seen the disbursement sheets. Is that
That is-
correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Other questions here? Okay, so I just want to raise a couple of issues because I'm all of the advantages of electronic fund transfers that the treasurer has outlined are very widely known in the municipal community, not just the municipal community, but the business community, all of the security and safety. But what has basically happened here is there's a transfer and council has delegated additional responsibility to staff, which has taken away responsibility from the mayor. The mayor no longer signs 90% of the money going out the door. I don't even see, well, I have been seeing it, but there's no point of me reviewing the invoices on the electronic fund transfers if that money has already gone out the door. That's the point that I'm trying to get at. So there's still a very small number of checks to sign on the Tuesday morning following the council meeting, but it is minuscule compared to what it was before this change. Now, my major issue, and not really an issue, but a concern was, how does the auditor respond to this change of procedure? And in the briefing note, the treasurer indicates on the third paragraph of the briefing note, you'll see it on page 49. In the 2020 financial audit, the auditors reviewed all internal controls, including this new procedure, and the auditor's comments can be found on page 2 of the audit findings report attached. So when I look at the audit findings report attached, that's page, I think it's page 58 of 73.
Correct.
And so when I look on page 58 of 73, where is it that the auditor addresses himself to this change of procedure? I don't see where he refers to it on page 58.
So at the bottom of the page under significant deficiencies in internal controls, while our review of controls was not sufficient to express an opinion of their effectiveness or efficiency, we have not detected significant deficiencies in internal controls.
Okay, so I guess you're reading that to say that the change from monies being left in the office until after council approves the disbursement sheet and the mayor signs the checks is not a significant, does not lead them to detect significant deficiencies in controls. Is that the way you're interpreting that statement?
No, I'm interpreting the statement that the auditors have reviewed the accounts payable procedure and indicate that that new procedure has no deficiencies in internal controls. It enhances the internal controls. Many organizations, I'm even going to go out on a limb, I'm sure the counties don't do very many checks anymore. It's all done through an electronic funds transfer because of the fact that those controls are in place, the security around the RBC controls, as well as the controls that are attached in the accounts payable procedure bylaw or policy that I've attached that are followed, have been reviewed by the auditor and determined that there is no deficiencies in those controls.
Okay, so now, and I have no objection here. And my main interest in having this report brought forward is to make council aware of the extent of the changes. Believe me, I've got better things to do on a Tuesday morning than come here and sign a bunch of checks. And I guarantee you that the mayor of Brockville doesn't sign checks, and neither does the mayor of Ottawa. So I don't have a problem with it, except that I just want council to be fully aware of the significance of it. So unless council has concerns, I have no concerns, and I appreciate the treasurer bringing this report forward at this point in time, because I have to get this off my back, so to speak. I don't want council thinking one thing happens when in fact a completely different thing is happening. Councillor?
Well, it has changed things. It made it far more efficient in here. It's also made it far more efficient for the people that supply services to them. They actually get paid in a timely fashion. I know before the way it was, if a bill didn't get in by a certain time, people could be waiting 45 days before they got their money for it. And with the electronic transfer, regardless of whether it's electronic transfer or check, we look over the accounts, we look over, we question anyone, we want to see whether it was overpaid or not. But the fact of the matter is that our foreman and our administration is given a budget. We approve the budget for them to contract work. And if we look at a bill and think truck 5 was way too much that was spent on that, regardless of where we think was too much spent on, if our foreman sent that truck to that repair to get paid, we're going to pay that bill. There's no way out of it. Administration has purchased something, or they're sent a vehicle to be repaired. We can question and say, well, we got took on that. We got paid too much. Well, we just direct staff, but we don't deal with that company.
Yeah.
But you got to pay the bill regardless. So whether the mayor has to sign it or whether it's done electronically, our duty is to review the bills that our staff has did and question whether we should have spent that on that. If we don't think it is, well, we're going to lay that truck up. We're not going to spend any more money on it, or that supplier we got he charged us way too much for that. We could have bought it over here. We direct staff to look into a different acquisition of it. But regardless, once we asked for that service and it's been supplied, we're going to pay it regardless. There's no way out of it. So electronic, that just saves us money. It's an easy way. It's easy for staff to do. Our job is to review what bills have been done and decide whether we want to keep on that same path with that same supplier or that same one doing the work. So,
Okay, further comments, if any? There's nothing turns on this report, and there's no recommendation with it. It's a point of information. All right, I'm moving now to item number 7H, which is the river route update. And item number 7H appears on page 66, 67, quite a number of pages here. This report was distributed a few days ago.
Sorry?
Is that the report? I can't see what you're looking at, so I don't know what you're looking at.
Typing notes.
So it's distracting. Excuse me, I just found it distracting because the same when Councillor Hunter was speaking. I just found it distracting. In any case, the issue up for discussion right now is the river route update. And I can't recall, is there a recommendation here, Mr. Grant?
Mr. Chair, there's not the recommendation that when it was brought forward on September 7th was to bring it to admitted finance to have further discussion on whether making this route a permanent municipal service in partnership with the
Right, and I believe the nub of the issue there is that by continuing the service and declaring it to be a permanent service, it becomes eligible for a certain grants. I'm not totally aware of the structure.
Yeah, so through the chair, with respect to the provincial gas tax transit funding program, they will not contribute to a pilot project, but they certainly we would be eligible if we made this a permanent municipal service. I guess to clarify, permanent, it means that the intent is to continue on with the service for, an extended time period. It certainly doesn't mean that within 2 years into the program, if there isn't a chance to come back to revisit.
And I'm assuming that there's going to be a budget act with making it a permanent service and continuing it beyond the 6 months.
Yes, so through the chair, I would certainly say that we would need to have an agreement in place that would have a more formalized budget and sort of system in that regard.
Do you have any idea what the ask is going to be?
So if we look at page
73 or 73.
if we look at page 73 of 73, there is a rough revenue budget and a rough expense budget for the program to run from March to December of 2022, and a very high level budget with respect to our 2023 operation.
So I guess the problem that we're going to face is whether we go ahead with this or not. I just have a couple of questions with regard to the survey that was done. And I'm going to ask these questions because this is becoming a real issue. I see that all of the Prescott Council seems to be in favor of continuing the program, along with, I think, Councillor Dillabaugh, you indicated a couple of times that you're in favor of keeping it going as well. But when I look at the survey, the general public survey results, on page 67, the question was, if you or someone in your household has used it, what was the purpose? And I noticed that there's only 20% of the users that indicate that they're using it for work purposes. Now, I think the number of riders was 12 riders per day, 20%. If we just use some rough numbers, that would be 2 rides roughly. 2 rides is basically one person to work and one person home from work. So
And yeah, through the
Do we have a-
potentially, yes.
big pardon?
Yes, potentially, that could be the case, or it could be.
So do we have any further insights as to who is using the service and in shopping, dining out, visiting friends, appointments, other? 18% is other. Question that we're going to be facing, I guess, is whether or not we're going to continue to put up $30,000 a year for this service. Councillor.
Well, to the chair, 20% you're saying is too. I'm not sure how accurate that this is.
Well, it says 204 surveys from the general public.
Yeah, I realize that. I'm just saying the 20%. I know where you're coming from, but it's just not used for work. I mean, it's used for, I know there's 4 people when I was on in Cardinal, 2 go to, I don't know, Brock all the time to give blood. So it's more than, and doctor's appointments. So it's more than work. You have to kind of, expand your thinking. It's more than work. And it's also where people, it's their lifeline. There's a gentleman in Johnstown, like I think I gave you an example. He's 83, he's no license. This is his lifeline. He does his shopping, he does his banking in Brockton every 2 weeks. That's just one example, but there's lots of examples like that. So it's more than just the work part that we have to sort of like expand the purpose of this. I agree that 20% I thought was really, really low for work. And I've been on it 4 times.
Then I look at, on page 67, if you haven't used the river route, please indicate what might be stopping you. And, roughly 40% say I have no need for public transport.
Another 60 do.
4% say they don't know about it, that's good. It tells it that we're getting lots of exposure in the marketplace, and then 2% say that $5 a ride is too expensive. So anyway, when you look at the next page, business survey results, 20 surveys from the business community were received with the results as follows: 15% manufacturing, 20% distribution retail or distribution warehousing, 10% retail, 15% restaurant, 5% service business, 25% services to consumers, and then 10% of respondents had an employee use the river route to get to or from work. Would your employees be interested in using the river route to get to or from work? 20% said yes, 35% said no, and 45% obviously haven't had much discussion with their employees. They say unknown. Then when you look at the barriers, bus route is not close enough to home. 35% business hours do not align. 20% more public education is required to address rider hesitancy, and 30% employees don't require service or have a car. So, I just think we should have some more discussion about this. We're looking at a $30,000 or $35,000 commitment for 2022, and then the concept of making it permanent. So, other discussion, Councillor Cameron.
Yes, and Mr. Mayor, I look at the ridership. And we've got to remember that most of those would be a round trip. So the number of rides is actually, or the number of people is actually half of what the rides would be. When we're looking at 12 a day, that's really 6 a day. Unless there's a lot of one-way trips, but I think the majority would be round trips. So that has to be certainly taken into consideration as well. But I'd like to ask another question, just regarding the bus, and I understand that was a donation, an in-kind donation, but it's leading people to believe that it's Rockville Transit that's heading this up, which it's not. So I guess my question would be, is that bus ever somewhere down the line going to have the correct transit name on it? That would be a question to the CAO to, if he doesn't know, would be maybe ask the committee at the next, or the river route committee that you would sit on. If you don't know the answer to, maybe ask that question.
Well, through the chair, it's certainly more than just the bus that is sort of, we'll say, in kind. They're supplying the driver and doing the maintenance maintenance on that particular unit. And it is addressed on the top as river route, not a specific Brockville route. But the plan would, it would form part of that. We'll call it part of the Brockville system, but
Well, okay, which leads me to a follow-up question and on that. Is there a chance that somewhere down the line that Brockville Transit may say, whoa, wait a minute, we need that bus back? So then we have no bus.
So through the chair, what I can advise you is that the staff at Brockville are bringing a report to their council indicating to continue to operate that service. The particular bus that's being used would be what I would say is a spare bus. They typically have 3 routes, and they would have had 4 units, and typically 1 unit would be out of service for maintenance and repairs, while the other 3 were in service. And what they've done is adjusted their schedule that a lot of the maintenance is done on off hours now.
Just one more comment, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that. Also, too, the pilot project was for 6 months. Actually, to be quite truthful, it really was 5 months and a couple of days. Really, it wasn't. I don't think a full 6 months. And that was more or less a pilot project for the work in the industry locations. Now they want to look at the residential users. I think that's what the next round is all about. So, Mr. Mayor, being just a short time frame that we had on the one pilot project, perhaps we should think about continuing this for another 6 months to see how the residential area accepts and goes along with this. And we also have to remember too that I know COVID had a lot to do with the impact on the ridership, because people were just not getting out and so on. So I think, to be quite truthful, Mr. Mayor, I think we could probably find the $35,000 somewhere. So I'm thinking that we probably should continue for another 6 months. And am I correct that they want to look at it for another 6 months?
So through the chair, I believe the intent would be making it more of a permanent system that would be evaluated at a later date. To me, you probably, if you're looking at a new service, you probably need a year and a half or 2 years really to determine.
Yeah.
What that typical ridership would be. I think the bigger question is whether council sort of sees the value to the community in the years to come, more so than looking specifically at the 6 month pilot project end of it. Like with respect to the work side of it, I would say that it's certainly with only roughly a fifth of the riders using it specifically for work. Yeah, it's certainly more being used multi-purpose at this stage.
Deputy Mayor wants in, and then I have Councillor Hunter.
Okay, couple of quick questions. But going back to where Councillor Cameron was through the chair to the CAO, the bus, is it going to continue being an in-kind donation from Brockville? Do we know that on a permanent basis, or are we looking at investing in a bus?
So through the chair, the staff report that would be going to council tonight would indicate that it would continue that.
So we have that in writing. Good. And-
So naturally, the same situation we're in, subject to council.
Right. And the way that I read, and just to Councillor Cameron's comments before, he said, and maybe I'm reading my report incorrectly, but he said 35,000 for the rest of the year. The way that I read it is 22,725 for the rest of the year. Or if you go back to January 1, it would be 27,740 for the rest of the year. Am I correct on that?
I'm sorry, I just used the number 35,000 because I thought that was tossed around
Okay,
at the last budget.
Okay.
I just used that. If it's less than that, that's fine.
So
But I think what I'm trying to say is I'd really like another 6-month pilot trial. Once it's made permanent, I'll tell you, this could become a very, very expensive service for very few people. Hopefully that wouldn't be the case, but you just don't know these things.
But on the other hand, I'm just gonna jump in here.
Sure.
On the other hand, by declaring it a permanent service, you make yourself eligible for the grants.
Yes, that is true, yes.
And my point is, I just, when we're having the discussion, when we put numbers out, I'd like those numbers just to be accurate. Because to me, for the rest of the year, we're talking about 22,000, not 35. And I like, when we make decisions, I'd like them to be on accurate numbers, that's all.
Well, there's a couple of questions there. The treasurer reported just a few minutes ago that we've not yet received an invoice from Prescott. They're acting as the administrators here. So we haven't yet received an invoice from them for the 10,000. So, and we clearly intended that would be a 2021 expenditure.
So through the chair, that is correct.
All right, so now for the immediate next budget, we're talking about 2022 expenditure. And I'm taking it because the briefing note that I have in front of me says March to December 2022. So I'm hoping that the 10,000 that we're going to eventually pay, which we've committed to do, gets us to March. And then we're looking for a municipal contribution of 68,000, all three municipalities, to get us through to December. Now, if I take each of the three municipalities, 68 divided by 3, roughly 32, roughly, well, actually, that's only 15. Oh, 14. What is this? What's the number? 20,000 each.
22,000.
22,000 each. So round it up to 30. Maybe because maybe the 10 doesn't cover us all the way through to the end of February. I don't know. But if you round it up to 30, it still comes down to is Augusta going to pony up their 30? And will Prescott pony up their 30? And if so, is that the number that we'll be asked to match? And we need to know the commitments from the others. I can't. Brockville, it looks to me, is putting in 137,000. Is that the right way of looking at that? They're paying the salaries, the fuel, and the maintenance, or are they just paying the fuel and the maintenance?
So through the chair, Brockville is supplying the bus.
Yeah.
And the driver salary, fuel and maintenance are the operating expenses. That the three municipalities would be splitting.
Okay, so we're paying the project itself is paying its full operating cost, but not its capital cost.
Through the chair, that is correct. And the thought process would be as we'll call it the oldest bus drops out of the Brockville system, it becomes the River Rate bus.
Okay, all right, so further discussion, Councillor Hunter, you want to?
Well, I got a few questions. First one is potential gas tax revenue is 75%, 59,000. Now, this gas tax subsidy, is this a total new gas tax subsidy, or is this part of the gas tax subsidy we lose that we always got for roads?
So through the, through the chair, it is specific to the transit.
So this doesn't affect the
Public-
roads.
It's
gas
specific to
tax.
public transit.
Okay. Now, the next one is, we've been alluded to a lot of times here, that Rockville's going to keep supplying the bus along the way. And as you said, that's got to go to council for them to approve that they're going to keep putting this bus up. They're going to do the maintenance in their own shop, and the fuel. And come down to the 22,725 for the rest of this year, and 27,740 for next year. Providing we get the gas tax. Is this a guarantee, this gas tax? It just says probable or potential gas tax.
Yeah, so through, so through the chair, there are, I would never say that there's any guarantees, but it's highly probable that the gas, the potential gas tax.
My understanding is that all transit systems get that subsidy.
Through the conversations that the CAO Prescott has had directly with that, it looks pretty positive that would be something that we would be receiving once it's done.
So my other problem is with the numbers of people that's actually writing this. By look at the surveys, as you say, Councilor Cameron said, we started out looking at this as to help business get people to work. Obviously, that's not what this system's ever going to do, get people to work. Doesn't align with their hours and one thing another. Shift change. So we're looking at residential ridership mainly, as Councilor Delva said, seniors that haven't got their license and one thing another way to get thing, and we got riders numbers, but we don't know is how many different riders. We know how many numbers there was in the month. We can't say that there's only 20 people using, there's 20 people rode, but that might be 20 different people every week. So we really don't know how many in there. That's right. Format out of the air, who's using it. It appears like a lot of them of the survey was done at a, that we got was, the biggest chunk was done in the Cardinal survey. My one question is, I don't see any response from Prescott. We got a gust in there, but I didn't see a response or how many people responded from Prescott in that survey. It was Augusta, Rockville, and Edwardsburg. Prescott not taking part in the survey.
Oh my goodness, you're right. Oh, yeah, it says Prescott, 29
30%.
30% Prescott.
67.
on the top of page 67.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem supporting keeping this bus route going if they're willing to change the route that they're going. Because I don't think running up and down number 2 highway and just dedicating it to the people in Prescott and the people in Johnstown and the people in Cardinal to get on it to ride. But why run a bus? You're trying to get your residents to use the bus up and down the same road every time. We're going to run 5 routes a day. Why not change the route? One route goes down number 2 and comes back through that it goes to Shanley and up through to Spencerville and maybe out through and up through to Maynard and back out and up to Brockville to give. We got 2 seniors homes, one basically senior home in Shanley and one in Spencerville, but people don't have transportation. We're getting more and more seniors in Spencerville here all the time. Maynard has a lot of seniors in Maynard. Why don't we make at least twice a day? Maybe you do first thing in the morning and last thing at night for the people that want to work at the plants there, but routes in between, make a circle around and try to get more ridership. We're gonna pay money here, we should be trying to get to the areas. Like that's only, I've heard a lot of complaints from back in the Spencerville area. Why are we only worrying about picking up seniors in Cardinal? We got all kinds of seniors in Spencerville, we got all kinds of seniors in Shanley and back through by Pittston. That you have to stop at Pittston and one at Glen and Shanley and one here at front of Joe's Hotel or back at the seniors home or something, and then on up through. There's people that would get on that bus and ride it to Rockford to go to get groceries and all that other stuff. I think we're limited ourselves. I don't mind putting the full weight behind support if they're willing to change the route to try to get more riders. But we've had 6 months, we're not picking the riders up that we anticipated, just running up and down number 2. So.
Any further discussion on this item? There's obviously no recommendation coming with it. It's sort of a preparatory for discussion at budget, at the next budget meeting or thereafter. And one thing I would ask Mr. Grant is that when this does come up on a budget meeting, would you have this full briefing note included again in the package? Because I'll guarantee we'll lose this package. Is there any further discussion here before I move on? Okay, I'm about to move on. And so that basically concludes item number 7 on the agenda, which is the action information items. And I'm turning now then to item number 8 on the agenda, which is council inquiries or notices of motion. Does anyone have anything to bring forward here?
I don't have an inquiry, but I just have a little statement made to me by a few residents that have moved into the township and live in Spencerville here. And we all know we had a couple of complaints from not getting their side street snow cleaned out Spencerville here as quick as they thought it should have been cleaned out. But I got about 3 or 4 different people that have recently moved into Spencerville for the first time in the winter that have told me they're just amazed at what a great job our road crew did at getting the snow cleared away after that big snowstorm. 2 days later, most of the main streets were cleared out, and they lived in a main street in Ottawa. And the last big snowstorm they had last year, there were 2.5 weeks before they even seen a truck to take out, and it was weeks before they got their sidewalk down, salted and down to bare pavement. So I think it should be noted that we do have a lot of residents that are giving our road crews full marks for the job that they did after that big storm. And I think it just should be noted that there's a lot of people going to give them a pat on the back. I think they did a good job.
Thanks for bringing that forward. Anybody that's lived in a city, especially a place like Ottawa, knows how long it takes to get to the residential streets. Councillor Cameron.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'd just like to draw staff's attention to the resume of correspondence of May 3rd. February 8th from the municipality of South Dundas. And it regards on page, well, I guess there's no page, but it refers to 100-10038 Haynesville Road, which virtually borders Edwardsburg Cardinal, where a barn and manure storage is a new barn and manure storage has been requested. My question is to staff, and Mr. CAO, you may have to get back to us on this, but is anyone from the township going to either be on virtual on February 22nd regarding this? Because the setbacks that they're asking are, wow, they're pretty severe. And you practically got the barn and the manure storage areas virtually next to the road, which was Pittston Road, which becomes Haynesville Road when you cross the border. And the border is like right there. So it is so close to our township, and it's also close to the drainage of the South Nation River. I believe it's a tributary to the South Nation. I went and looked at it today, and boy, it looks pretty darn tight. So I'm just wondering if someone from staff is looking into this or will be looking into this in any way.
Through the chair, I'll have to follow up on that.
Appreciate your answer coming. Thank you.
Well, I want to raise that same issue. So I have the application in front of me. It's an application for a minor variance. And maybe you can help me, Mr. CAO. What does MDS2 stand for? It says to reduce the MDS2 setback for a new dairy barn construction type A land use from 183 meters to 50 meters. So that's a setback that's being reduced from 183 to 50. To reduce the MDS2 setback for a new manure storage facility from 265 meters to 76. And then to reduce the MDS2 setback for a new dairy barn to the nearest road allowance from 37 meters, which is the standard right now, to 4 meters. And reduce the front yard setback for a new dairy barn from 15 meters to 4 meters. Just seems really, really close to our property boundaries.
I think MDS is minimum distance setback.
Separation.
Separation.
Yes, minimum distance separation from particular other uses.
So how would our planners respond to this?
He just signed up. He's now on Hollywood Squares.
Yeah, through the chair, and I anticipate that Mr. Pence is probably not aware of this particular application, and I'll have to touch base with him.
He's here.
He's here.
Well,
It isn't, it isn't.
so through the chair, yes, I would prefer not to sort of put him on for something that he's not aware of. If you'd like to ask him a question, but
Into the fire.
So
I think that Mr. Pence is here because of the closed session agenda.
correct.
So, Mr. Pence, I know you're probably not aware of this, so we won't put you on the spot here right now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. That's fine. Thanks.
I'll get the fire extinguisher for you.
Okay, so, Mr. Pence, we're gonna just conclude this agenda. There's about 2 other items on here before I call for the motion to go into the in-camera session, and then we'll be with you.
Okay.
So the next item that I had under council inquiries, and just for Mr. Grant, the low lift station at Windmill Road that brings water to Greenfield. Do you have a date yet for when the new pumps will be installed at that station? I mean, it's quite a big project for Greenfield, and I'm just wondering if we have a date yet.
So through the chair, the latest report is that the upgrade would take place at 2 separate times. There would be during the spring shutdown, they would do some of the wet well upgrades and do the final installation of the new pumps at the fall shutdown. So, and I'm just trying to get some further clarification on that end.
Okay, thank you. So it's not imminent.
It is not.
Okay, so now, unless there are other council inquiries or notice of motion, I'm going to proceed to item 9, which is the mayor's report. And I am going to report on something that Mr. Pence might be interested in. So the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville held their Planning Advisory Committee meeting this morning to discuss the Aggregate Resources Master Plan, which is amendment number 3 to the county's official plan. And the Planning Advisory Committee now has met twice to deal with this Aggregate Resources Master Plan. Now, our council did send a letter saying that we hope that they would identify bedrock that was 5 meters from surface and below. And the county planner indicated that, or excuse me, the planner that was hired indicates that the provincial policy statement requires that where provincial information is available, it shall be used. And the provincial information that's available deals with bedrock that is 1 meter from surface or 8 meters and below, and doesn't deal with anything in between. So the county, the planner that was involved had no option to use our suggestion, but I just want you to know that our motion was supported by North Grenville. And the last thing that I want to report to you is that as a result of this morning's meeting, we've sort of come to an agreement as to what the Aggregate Resources Master Plan will look like. And let me first of all say that the intent of the way the plan has been written is the following. It has been written in such a way that the township staffs, each of the townships, will have wide-ranging discretion to not require an aggregate resources study when a proponent is bringing a project forward. So they'll have wide discretion to avoid an aggregate resources study. There will be certain circumstances where an aggregate resources study may be required, but there will be many where it isn't required. So in that sense, the plan that is going to be adopted, or the amendment to the county official plan that's going to be adopted, is quite permissive as far as the township planning process is concerned. So I just want to bring council up to date on that. And because Mr. Pence is waiting, I'm going to move rather quickly to the clerk. Is there anyone on the Zoom that's looking for questions this evening?
No, through the chair, I have not received any, and no one has joined us this evening.
Thank you very much. And we are going to proceed then to the closed session. And I have a motion to come forward to proceed into a closed session. Who has that
I
motion?
do. Move myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the committee proceed in closed session at 8:54 PM in order to address a matter pertaining to Section 239(2)B, personal matters about an identified individual, including municipal or local board employees, specifically public works, vaccination policy, and minutes of closed session dated December 6, 2021. And number 2, Section 239(2)C, proposed pending acquisition or disposal of land by the municipality or local boards, specifically job site challenge MZO.
Okay, thank you very much. And the motion is on the floor. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. And because Mr. Pence is here, I'm going to ask if council is prepared to proceed right on. If I may, please.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Okay, so proceeding right on. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Just one second. It is 9:48.
Myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, the closed meeting of committee does now adjourn and the open meeting does now resume at 9:48 PM.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried, and we're rise from the in-camera session, and as a result, Councillor Dillaball will bring a motion forward to approve minutes of a closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and second by Councilor Cameron that the committee receives and approves the closed session minutes dated December 6, 2021.
Thank you very much. Those in favor?
Aye.
And so that approves the minutes of the closed session from December the 6th. And reporting further from the closed session, I will say that council or the committee met with our planner from Novatech to discuss proposed or pending or acquisition or disposition of land, specifically the dog site challenge and the MZO associated therewith. And also, the committee met with Mr. Grant specifically concerning the vaccination policy and provided direction to Mr. Grant. And that concludes the report out from the closed session. Do I have the motion to adjourn the meeting?
That is me, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter. The committee does now adjourn at 9:50 p.m.
Thank you very much. Those in favor? Motion is carried. We are adjourned. Thank you.